What's going on, Trophy Kids? We got an awesome show for you. We are talking about this past weekend's games, giving a quick recap on the big ones. Then we're going over our bets and picks for this week. And we are breaking down our top 10 for college football. It's a good one. Let's go. And welcome to Trophy Kids, presented by Bad News Media. It is November, the 13th, Friday the 13th. How are we doing today, gentlemen?
Doing well.
I wish I could tell you because it's Friday the 13th in 2020, but not yet. So nothing bad has happened yet.
This is true.
Nothing bad has happened?
Huh?
You mean to you, nothing bad has happened to you yet.
Nothing bad has happened on this Friday the 13th because
Gotcha.
we're recording on the 12th.
Yeah, that's true. His math checks out.
We don't know.
Thursday.
When you're listening to this, ladies and gentlemen,
He's now
the world
jinxing
could
the hell out of our day, but
Yeah, we could.
tomorrow's about to be a nightmare for us. But yeah, sure.
Yeah, right.
Thanks for throwing that one out there. Yeah, I already messed up the intro, but we've got some stuff to talk about. You know what I was thinking this week, though, on a non-football related conversation?
Uh-oh.
I think I might become a robe guy. I've been thinking about it hard. Do either of you own a robe?
No.
Sure do.
Do you wear it?
About twice a year.
I feel like robe people are just like a more relaxed group of individuals. Like they're just
My
like,
wife may wear her robe every day.
who?
My wife may wear her robe every day.
Yeah. My
More
girlfriend
relaxed.
wears her robe often as well.
And are they more relaxed than you are per se?
Hey,
Generally.
Well, I
Now, I will say this, Nate. When I go to a hotel and there's a robe there, I immediately put it on.
So that I never
Yes.
do. I was thinking about it. I was like, I feel like people that wear robes are just more relaxed. I need a little bit more chi in my life, I feel like. I'm a little too high strung right now.
I mean,
Now that
there's
you
a
bring
lot
this up,
happening.
Nate.
Huh?
Now that you bring this up, Nate, where did you have this thought?
I was just hanging around, like on drinking like my coffee. What day was it? I want to say it was like Tuesday or something.
But at what point did robe pop into your mind? Is what I want to know, Nate.
Oh, it was in the morning. It was a little
Okay.
cool. It was a little colder in the house.
It's
And
a little
I was
nipply
like-
in the house, and you
Yeah.
figured,
And I woke up in sort of a bad mood, and I was thinking, man, wouldn't it be
Robe.
nice to put on like a nice fluffy robe, drink my coffee, have like my left testicle hang out of my shorts, just relax, not a care in the
Ugh.
world. Like that's what I think robe dudes do, and just like read the paper or something. Not read the paper, read the internet. But I'm not
Yep.
50. But yeah, like I was thinking, it'd be nice to be a
you
robe
know,
dude.
I would
I-
like to go back to the day of paper, coffee, front porch, and robe.
I don't know,
That
feels like getting up
actually
early, but-
sounds pretty good.
I'm gonna pass on that for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking about. I was like, I'm gonna run it by this group because I don't know. I felt like somebody might own a robe in this group, but apparently not. Well, Tim does, but
I do.
If you want a robe, I implore you to get one.
all right. Well, let's move on and actually talk about some sports because that is why the people come here,
Or more robe talk.
or more robe top, I guess. When I invest in one, I'll let you know. I feel like I'm gonna get it embroidered too. I feel like that's also.
Mine is embroidered.
Yeah. I feel like that's. I feel like that's a Christmas gift I can ask my mom, and she'd be very delighted to get me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel
absolutely.
like.
Ours
feel
were
like
wedding
that's-
gifts.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good mom gift because she's
Mhm.
always just like, "What do you want for Christmas?" And I don't have an answer at this age of my life. I don't know. I don't know. Give me money. Give me cash, I guess.
Yes, right.
But yeah, robe will be. I'll throw that on the list this year. I'll let you know. I'll keep you updated on the robe talk. But gentlemen, we got to talk about something serious here.
Yes.
On Saturday,
Nothing
I-
bad happened on Saturday.
I was driving back from Indianapolis. I arrived to my friend's house who's having the outdoor like barbecue football fest, as he refers to it. He's a Notre Dame fan for the Clemson game. And when I arrived, on the scoreboard, out of the corner of my eye, I happened to see Illinois putting what I could only describe, or not Illinois, Iowa. geez, Iowa.
Yeah.
An absolute WWE style smackdown. Gentlemen, what happened?
We don't
So,
talk
on
about
the other
events.
on the other screen, I saw an absolute WWE SmackDown of Indiana and Michigan. That was what I saw.
I did.
Can-
Yeah. Well,
Can we talk about how many lopsided games there were on Saturday?
did I not say that was probably going to happen when I looked at the board? I was like, I feel like every one of these lines is either going to be spot on or the most out of this world off one side or the other. I walked into my friend's garage and his dad immediately turned down and was like, how about Indiana over here? I was like, I know, I called that. Like, we all called that on the pod, that they're a solid program. But your boys, I mean, I know we're trying to avoid the subject, but
We are avoiding the subject.
We are
what
literally avoiding the subject. Well, what had happened was,
right.
let's just say, I'm going to say Michigan State's going from week to week. They take 1 week off, they play another week. They take 1 week off, they play another week. Because we can talk about this later, but this line against Indiana smells fishy to me.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Tim here. I think there is no read on this Michigan State team. That they're going to come in and they're going to play whatever football they're going to play that day, and we just have to sit back and watch it. I think for this Indiana game, though, Michigan State, both in basketball and in football, but more particularly in football, does like to play the spoiler. And since Indiana is kind of in the driver's seat with Ohio State's game canceled, Michigan State could spoil Indiana's hopes to go undefeated until they meet Ohio State.
Like, if you watch that game, you would think Indiana would be a, I don't know, 20-point favorite at a minimum, especially with all the money still pouring in on Michigan State now, and the line hasn't moved.
But I think the line
thing.
hasn't moved because Indiana doesn't play defense.
That's fair, but I mean, so I do think
Michigan
with this
State play
thing,
offense.
I think with the,
Yeah.
Ricky
Didn't
White,
look like it on Saturday.
Ricky White plays offense. Not many other people do.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I looked at that box score and whoo, I was expecting a nice 14-17 type game. I almost had the damn over itself. I think they ended up maybe getting the over by themselves, but yeah, that offense.
They did, because I think it was 46.5.
I want to say that sounds about right. Yeah, that offense is looking.
That number checks out.
I mean, that line. A couple things happened, right? That line didn't hold up, and when it did hold up, we missed either we did a really bad throw or the running back missed the hole. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for Michigan State.
And Rocky looked hurt.
Yeah, Rocky. I don't know why we kept him out.
At least I kind of hope he was hurt, because he played really bad. He needs an excuse. I don't hope he was hurt to wish any evil on him, but I hope he was playing through an injury.
Yeah. And the other thing, just looking ahead a bit and avoiding this Iowa conversation that Nate keeps trying to bring us into, Indiana and Michigan State are pretty evenly matched when we're talking about yards per game. Like, Indiana averages 339 yards. Michigan State averaged 368. We rush 78. They rush 89. And we're about the same in average passing yards. So that might be another reason that line isn't moving. These teams on paper, at least, match up really well.
Yeah, I have this game on my card. I think when I look at it, I go, well, you're never as good as your best win, and you're never as bad as your best loss. Usually just somewhere in between. But Michigan State, I mean, you looked bad against Rutgers with the 7 turnovers. You looked great against Michigan, but as we found out, Michigan's sort of fraud city. And then you looked absolute trash against Iowa. So if I'm going in the middle, it doesn't look good. And on the other side, you got Indiana, who looked good, but not also against bad teams. Not as bad as Rutgers bad, but Penn State isn't as what we thought they were. Rutgers they're a solid team, I would say, but nothing crazy. And Michigan's bad, which we're going to get to John Harbaugh here in a second, because
Jim,
sorry.
John's a good coach.
Yeah, John just wins stuff.
Yeah, Jim might, I got to say, after that loss, it's time to go.
The other thing we have to talk about with Iowa is there was no way they were going to go 0-3, right?
No,
That was I think,
Hmm.
and I hate to do this cliche, but like, I'm sure Iowa went in there like, we have to win this game. And then Michigan State just rolled over.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it
they
must
did.
be it must be tougher. I'm hoping this is the case, that it's tougher with a new coach to kind of control the highs and the lows of a team's emotions.
Yeah.
So that's why I still have. At the end of the day, the season ended for me when we beat Michigan
Yeah,
with
me too.
with a new coach and
And a
a shortened
resounding win, too.
season and a very weird season. So when that happened, the season kind of ended for me. So whatever happens is I'll wait till next year to worry about what's going on with this team.
Yeah. I mean, the Michigan game is still a good win for y'all, but Jim Harbaugh,
You got it right this time.
Yep, Jim.
and Michigan, they're in a bad spot. That's a bad football team. They are limping to the finish line at this point. And
They should not be 1-2.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how you look. Like, we said it last week. When I was looking at that game, I was like, this is the Michigan get right game, essentially. Like, they can either come in and get right against Indiana, or it ends their season. And I think it ended their season, because I don't know how, if you're a Michigan player, you lose to Indiana like that, you lose to Michigan State the week before, how you come back and finish out the season strong, especially when Jim is not looking like a good head coach. Like, the decisions he is making are not good.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a long time. That dude looks lost. He looks out in space. He does not seem all there mentally. And I keep going back to that Amazon series that I watched where he just looked out in space, sounded out in space, and then he brought in his brother for one pep talk before a game, and he was all there. It was like wild. I didn't realize how night and day somebody could sound versus their own brother.
So every time you bring up this documentary, I always think about, or this series, I always think about, weird things that happen. Like them, I think they spell Rochester wrong in that thing. But there's a part where he goes up to, I can't remember, I think it's a special teams player, and he's like, "This was my old room when I was here at the University of Michigan," and that kid could not be more unenthused about sleeping in the
Yeah. I mean, that's the Michigan prestige sort of wearing off. Like, some kids might find that, like, if you went to, like, Alabama and Nick Saban was like, I used to live here, they'd probably be a little bit more pumped. But, like, that's that Michigan prestige getting wiped off real quick.
And it's wild because they still have the arrogance too. When you saw Joe Milton go up to the press conference and say, "Who's that for Antoine Simmons, who's the starting middle linebacker who played his ass off in the game and just whooped your ass up and down."
There's a lot of fan bases that need to check themselves in college football, especially because they haven't been relevant in more than a decade. You could lump, like, Tennessee in there with them. You could lump South
Tennessee
Carolina. No, they're not that as arrogant, but, like, there are equivalents across the board that you're just like, what are you talking about? You haven't been relevant in decades.
Texas,
yeah, they're another one that needs to get their priorities straight.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Michigan's schedule. They got Wisconsin this week, which we'll talk about here later. They got Rutgers, Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. They're looking to be lucky to get 3 wins here this season, I think, with the way this schedule's looking and how teams are playing. Like, they get lucky to get 3 wins.
I think Michigan State and Michigan are going to end with very similar records at the end of this year.
And I would love nothing more.
Another game that was impressive this week, and I think we should talk about this before we get into the COVID and the games of this week, or this past week, Notre Dame Clemson.
Yes.
How awesome was it to have that game actually live up to the hype? Because on paper, or I shouldn't say on paper, going into it, I think everybody was excited for it, but we know all the time there are big games slated that do not live up to the hype, and this game lived up to the hype, even without Trevor Lawrence, which I do have. Like, I think if he was in the game, that's a different ball game, because there were some throws that were missed that I don't think he would have missed, or reads that he missed. But all credit to Notre Dame. They absolutely showed the nation that this is not an underrated team. like I said before, I think this is the best Notre Dame team that there's been in years. Dante, you pointed out this game is going to solidify them in the ACC, and I think it sort of has. Like, you can't leave now. But hell of a football game. I mean, absolutely great football game.
It was wild.
Yeah, Tim and I were watching it, and I was just like, oh, we're not going to play any defense in this first quarter. And then the top came off.
Yep. It was, I mean, and part of it was, like, the defenses are good. I think it was just, like, the level of play and execution was so good that it, like, even the best defenses usually can't hold against the offenses that are executing at a high level. And that's what you got there. Like, yeah, the tackling wasn't great at times. Like, I remember watching some plays where it looked like Notre Dame hadn't had a tackling drill in months. And you could say same thing for Clemson at times. But, like, the old lines were blocking super well. Quarterbacks were executing well. Running backs were reading their blocks. I mean, wide receivers were out there making plays. It was high-level football, which was awesome to see.
Yes, it was a great, refreshing. It like brought you back to actually watching college football again too, because you haven't had like a big time game like that actually lived up to the hype in a little while. And to see those two go, and the game didn't like go in spurts either. It was like evenly matched throughout the entire thing. It wasn't like a team had to make a run to make a comeback. It was like you were just glued to the TV the entire time.
Yeah. And you knew it was going to come down to whoever made a mistake first. Whoever did the mistake first, that was the person. That was the team that was going to lose.
It's a big win for Notre Dame because, well, obviously because they haven't had a win like that in decades. But it does, I think, help wash out because I think we all fall victim somewhat because we think about like when they played Alabama in the national champion, they got wiped up the floor with them. And then the time they made the playoffs, they got absolutely destroyed. Unfairly. I think we think of them like that. And what?
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah, sometimes it happens against Alabama in the playoffs.
Yeah. and Brian Kelly has been great against ranked opponents, but even with Trevor Lawrence, and I'm pissed at myself because going into this game, I didn't call it perfectly, but I was like, I think Notre Dame covers here, Clemson wins, and of course had a couple cold ones in me. Close to game time, I then go flip completely to Clemson, which really wasn't a great way to end the night. And then I doubled down in the game at points, so it wasn't. I had such a good weekend though that I ended up still making money on the weekend, but it turned bloody very quickly for my my bankroll for a second.
I see one of our buddies got to you.
Yes.
You really wanted to root against him hard.
Yes. Yeah, which is unfortunate.
The one thing that Clemson has to do here is they have to get better at running the ball. Because Notre Dame was all over them trying to get that ball from between the tackles, and Clemson couldn't nothing. They ended the game with 34 rushing yards.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I think Notre Dame's defense is very good that they proved that. I think the other problem is, which wasn't a great because he ended up playing very well. I think there was a bit of a lack of respect for, I cannot pronounce his name, the Clemson quarterback. Because I think if Trevor's in there, I think there's a little bit more respect to the passing. Because there was a couple times, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was late in the game, and there was a dude running up the seam, and he just completely missed him on the read. Like, didn't even look his way, and he was streaking down the field. So I think that was part of it. But yeah, it wasn't the best game for ETN in that run, in the run scheme offensively, which I think will get better. I have a feeling this game's going to look a lot different in the ACC tournament or the ACC championship. But it's a solid win for Notre Dame, and it puts them, and you said this last week, Dante, and I think it's 100% true, and we're starting to see coaches, what's his face at Pitt was talking about it. Narduzzi. How you can't stop doing Notre Dame favors. They're either in the conference or they're out of the conference. And I think I agree 100%. Go in the conference.
They're already there for basketball and whatever else they're there for. So why not?
Everything but football.
Yeah, this makes no sense. They should be there for football. They can keep their little NBC contract. It seems to be working fine now. So why wouldn't it work fine afterwards?
I agree. I think the ACC's just got to say you can keep the NBC contract as is until it expires. But you're in the conference or you're out. And it's
how does it hurt Notre Dame? I guess losing the TV contract.
Yeah, that thing is.
That's a big.
That's the big. Yeah, but you can't tell me that NBC execs are going to be like, "Well, you're in the ACC, so we don't want to hold you."
I think it's the other way around. I don't know that they're like allowed in the ACC with the
because ESPN has
the way that ESPN has all the rights to all the ACC games. So I don't know that
Money
contract
talks.
works.
They'll figure something out. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a win-win for the ACC because it bolsters their roster.
Yeah.
I mean, because that conference football-wise it's not deep, and they need another kind of big team in there to help. It helps both Clemson and Notre Dame from that perspective, especially into the playoffs. So I think you have to lock them in.
Yeah, just tell ESPN they don't get Notre Dame games. They weren't getting them before.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Getting them before, so
just tell them that and say, you know what? If you don't agree to it, the ACC is going to NBC soon.
Yeah, right. Then the ACC is NBC, which I guess could happen too, right?
I possibly once. I don't know nearly enough about how those contracts work. I just know it's a large.
I'm a lawyer, and let me tell you how they work. No.
Disclosure: he is not a lawyer. I don't need lawsuits.
There is no legal advice given in this podcast.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about this weekend. I think before we talk about this weekend, though, we have to talk about what is going on in college football because it is.
What happened?
It's not looking good. COVID is, go figure, a problem. Right now, there are 10 teams postponed or 10 games postponed or canceled. 8 are postponed. 2 are canceled. That includes the Ohio State Maryland game, which makes this slate of this weekend games. The slate isn't very good. But this is a problem, and the SEC luckily kind of foresaw this to a point and has built into their schedule a way for teams just to be able to postpone and play later. I mean, we're going to be playing SEC football probably right up to the new year. But they built it into their schedule. The Big Ten really shot themselves in the foot, so they're having to cancel Ohio State, Maryland. It feels like we're almost teetering on losing potentially college football because the country is slowly progressing into enormous numbers daily, and it's running rampant through college programs. I mean, we got 10 games canceled right now.
Yeah, I think one thing, because there obviously no conference wants to cancel their programs, but I think one thing that gives the conference's solace is the playoff committee recently came out and said they're going to evaluate the games that the teams played because they're taking into account that games have to be canceled because of COVID, and that's neither team's fault. So they're going to take that into consideration. Does that hurt? Or that definitely hurts, I guess, your smaller conferences. But at the end of the day, also the playoff committee said we will have the playoffs when it makes sense, which I don't really know what that means because I feel like TV contracts, again, to bring those back up, would have to be inked sometime soon here. So
yeah, it's going to be, I think they'll eventually, I said this at the beginning of the season, I think the playoff will have to eventually be moved back. But until they do that, the Big Ten is in a rough spot because if Ohio State keeps losing games here, and it's not Ohio State's fault, and it's not Maryland's fault, but Maryland is the one that has the issue, so that's why they're canceling the game. But how can you judge an Ohio State team who potentially might not play all that many games versus an undefeated UC or an undefeated BYU or, a one-loss Notre Dame and a one-loss Clemson if Clemson wins in the ACC championship, and then you also have the SEC champion.
Whoever brings in more fans.
I know that's how they're going to do it, but that's a raw deal, and all because the Big Ten just took forever to come back.
Hey! They were worried about their players.
Well,
they're the only conference that went with player safety, Nate.
Right?
Yeah.
And they could be a shield for a minute.
They put player safety above everything else. Ignore all the messaging that Kevin Warren put out, but.
That
ignore the flip-flopping.
Brings us to a good point around this. In no way, shape, or form am I blaming the football programs for this. This is not because of football. This is because administrators in colleges decided to have kids back, and Halloween wasn't all that long ago. And then you also saw it in the Notre Dame game where you had an entire student section in the stadium, of course they rushed the field. They're 18 to 21-year-old drunk kids. Like, what did you expect was going to happen? What did you expect when you decided to have in-person classes and you have weekends like Halloween on the calendar? Like, kids are going to be kids, and it's the adults in the room have handled this terribly, which just kind of fits in with our country.
The LSU cancellation is attributed, I should say, to a Halloween party.
Yes.
So
it's not so much like the fear of like, oh, like it's going to spread rampant because of playing football games isn't so much the case, because college kids are being college kids while at college. Mm-hmm. And you have all these kids at your university right now. And you saw it with the Notre Dame game. Like, I don't blame. I mean, I do. The students deserve some blame, but it's like a very small smidge. It's the administrator's fault.
No, it's the administrator's fault.
100% the administrator's fault.
Yeah,
sure, they could have some students there, but not packing the stadium. I mean, they didn't pack it, but it was full.
No, but it was full. Like
it was full, and it wasn't just students.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't look like it was just students. I didn't think Notre Dame had that many kids on their campus, but maybe
I don't know. Was it Notre Dame one of those schools that didn't really change anything when the kids were coming back?
I don't remember. I think they canceled classes at one point.
They did have to shut it down for a little bit.
And they might have I think at some point in the season they were going to let people back into the stadium, like a certain amount, but I thought they were still doing students. I might be wrong.
I also think that people thought that by now we would have at least some control over the pandemic. And if you've been paying attention to any news, you know that we are trending in the wrong way. And so people are trying to plan for a pandemic that we really, frankly, don't really understand.
Yeah, and that's my fear right now. Like, we're going to get to the games here in a second, because even though it's a bad slate, I'm about to soak it up in, because it does feel like football is just trying to push through everything, but like it feels like because the country's slipping out of control with this and it's running rampant through colleges, we might be borderlining on maybe, I'm not going to say outright cancellation, but potentially a postponement of major football.
Yeah.
And I think the Pac-12 will just shut down if that happens, but
yeah, there's first week back.
Yeah. We're weird. We're also in week 11, and we've got the Pac-12 on their second week, the Big Ten on their fifth week. Fourth. You got the SEC, I don't know where now, 11 weeks in or whatever. It's weird. It's weird. We're in a weird spot.
This is the other place where, like, the NCAA, if it was a stronger force in football, as strong a force as it is in football as it is in basketball, they could step in and do some, like, universal stuff. But they're not either. They're letting these conferences just run their own thing.
That's how they've always operated, because that's where the money is. The money is getting paid directly to the conferences, not to the NCAA. So, I mean, money talks. And unfortunately, geographic locations talk, and some are handling it much different than others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, what happens if a state goes into shelter in place? Like, my city just went to shelter in place, but what if governors do that? Then does that mean that team doesn't play?
Probably. They were actually fine, because Washtenaw County went into shelter in place right before the Michigan game. So right before the Michigan game, and they were able to still play the game at U of M. They were just bussed immediately in and out of the county.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, and you hit on a good point there, Dante, too, because the Power Fives, it's weird, because in all other sports, the NCAA runs those sports, and the Power Fives run football. They essentially hire the NCAA as a mall cop. But because they all have their own different policies and procedures, we're seeing it's just like in the United States. Like, every state has a different policy and procedure, and there's no general guidelines, and that is causing chaos across the college football sphere. And that's a problem.
I thought you were about to say, and that's causing chaos in our current political.
Whoa, let's not go there.
Yeah, we're going to avoid that.
Welcome to Excuse My Politics. This is a new podcast.
Right. Avoid that.
Record scratch.
This just went on it.
You thought you were about to get some gambling picks this weekend? Psych. We're switching this up. But yeah, and best case in point, Wisconsin, Big Ten, which kind of gets us into this games this weekend. Best game on the schedule, possibly, I guess, when I'm looking at the board.
Michigan State, Indiana, clearly.
Yeah. Actually, Purdue, Northwestern. That in my brain, I immediately go, oh, no. But it's honestly the best football game probably this weekend, matchup-wise.
And Virginia Tech, Florida.
Or Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird one. All right, let's just get into the games there. We can start with that line. That line, I don't know what's going on there.
What is happening?
Vegas knows
what
something.
do you do here?
Vegas knows something, and I don't love the idea of going against them because who puts Virginia Tech after the Liberty loss and a defense that all season long doesn't look like they could stop a nosebleed as the favorite against number 9 Miami? I know Miami struggled offensively and defensively at times, but like, how is this a thing?
Well, it might be a thing.
I understand. I was hearing that 80% of the money is on this, on
Miami,
and the line hasn't moved.
Yeah.
Well, it might be
scary.
another thing with Michigan State and Indiana, where these two teams on paper are very evenly matched.
Yeah, but it's like Virginia Tech offensively is good, but their defense is
horse.
Bad.
Yeah.
I use this analogy on the pick too. They look like a toddler who just got a hold of their dad's whiskey cup, and it ain't going to be pretty. Like, that's how bad that defense is. They're stumbling through games. Like, just the defense alone, they let up 300 or 460 yards a game. That's astounding to me. 31 points, and that's the thing. Like, I think this is not on my card, but I think I have to pick
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. You have to.
I know I have to because
Vegas tells you have to.
I know, but brain, like, I'm just looking at it, I'm just like, their defense is so bad. I can't justify it in my brain.
Nate, this is like looking at a bear trap and thinking, that's really not a bear trap. I'll stick my foot in it.
No, that's like looking at a bear trap, say, I can stick my foot in and pull it out really quickly.
Yeah. Or like the trap with all the brush sit on top of it, and you're like, this will support my weight.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Nate is gonna save that call for Saturday.
Yeah, a couple cold ones at noon, and just fire off that tweet. I just want to go to bed. Instead of going to bed
to see the gif of the bear falling into the bear trap.
All in the name of content. My pain is all in the name of content. Yeah, I hate that line. I don't like this game. It stinks. I'm gonna watch it, but I'm gonna stay away from it. Indiana, Michigan State. We sort of already touched on this, but explain to me why I should have any faith in Michigan State not turning over the ball a minimum of 3 times here.
Oh, that probably will happen.
I got no reason.
Yeah,
and if they do that, I don't know how they stay within a touchdown. I don't know.
I'm telling you, you have to look at this from the other side. Indiana does not play defense.
It's another bear trap.
I get that, but if you're turning over, the turnover differential is hard for me to sit here and go, you know what game I wanna.
It's a bounce back game.
Every other game, Nate. They didn't turn the ball over in the Michigan game.
Yeah, I know.
You're gonna be heartbroken, Nate, if Michigan State wins by like 3 touchdowns or something.
I'll be so annoyed. At that, it won't. That small TV might go through a window.
We'll text you like, Nate, Indiana hasn't scored.
I mean, I told you.
Right.
I don't like how
this is one that I like us.
Yeah, I don't know anything about betting, but it's only +7, and
There's no reason it should be +7.
I mean, outside the fact that Michigan State eats a bowl of popcorn before every game and can't hold on to the football, like the turnover, you had 7 turnovers in the Rutgers game, you had 3 in the Iowa game, 3 picks by Lombardi. I don't know if he had a fumble or not.
Bad picks.
Like they weren't even like.
I mean,
he just threw them to the other team.
Yeah, he threw them directly to the other team.
He's thrown 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions on the year. And you're telling me I gotta
sounds about like Rocky.
You're
Sounds like the Rocky I
bet
know.
on that
Those
man?
are Kirk Cousins numbers right there. Okay.
Nah. I'm
It's
going
just like all great Michigan State quarterbacks.
Yep.
going
For
Indiana
Peyton
on that.
Manning, his first year in the league.
I'm going Indiana on that.
Don't compare him to Peyton Manning. Those two, Rocky Lombardi and
I
Peyton
didn't hear
Manning,
that.
should
That
never
slipped
be in
right
the
by
same
me.
sentence ever.
I'm just saying, Peyton Manning threw a lot of interceptions his rookie year.
He also didn't look like Rocky Lombardi.
He did not.
Notre Dame BC lines at 13.5. Over under is at 50. We thinking Notre Dame?
Boston College is better than I think that they're giving the line.
I agree.
This is going to be a close one. This is going to be a scary game. Notre Dame's buttholes are going to be puckered up this entire game, I think.
I sort of agree. Like, I put this on my degenerate report pick. I'm sort of regretting it. I wish I had taken the first half number, which is at 7 BC first half. I've got BC here because it's the red bandana game for one.
Oh, it's the red bandana game too?
It is the red bandana game.
Oh boy.
And they've got special jerseys this year for it. Like different than the ones they've done in past. So they have that. Now there is no home field advantage, but like they'll get up for that a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
Notre Dame knows they have UNC, I think, next week, so there's a little bit of a look ahead. They just played a physical game against Clemson. Like, even though, like, defensively you go, well, there was a ton of points, like, that was a really physical game at the point of contact. So you're probably a little beat up there, mentally exhausted. They're starting to probably have COVID from that field rushing. Like, Notre Dame season's about to just get canceled here any week now. Give it a week, it's probably gone. And you got BC, they got a lot on the line. They play tough. You got Phil, the quarterback, was a Notre Dame guy. There's a little bit of a revenge factor there. Just the closer we get to the game, the more I keep talking myself out of Boston College. I like the first half number a lot better than I like the full game now. But I'm sticking with BC here because they're a good football. They're a good football team. I'm just a little nervous that Notre Dame might just say screw it and have no letdown spot because they're that good of a team maybe this year. But I don't know. They also dropped a goose egg against Louisville.
Yeah,
So,
you got to make sure that if you're Brian Kelly, that your players don't overlook Boston College.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think it's a tough game. I do think the physical toll of the Clemson game mixed with BC it's going to be a little tough. And it's the red bandana game. So I've got BC there. Northwestern Purdue. I'm not going to lie. I have not watched a single second of either one of these football teams, but I feel like just knowing these programs, I can already tell exactly what these are. Northwestern is like a put you to sleep, watch the grass grow team, but they perform like clockwork. Purdue is not very good and relies on bang, bang plays and quick flashes in the pan, and that makes them dangerous for this game. But the line's at 2.5. Northwestern's favorite. Over-unders at 51. Tell me I'm wrong in any part of that or what this is, because I haven't watched a single.
Northwestern is just gonna try to run this game into the ground.
watch the grass grow. And they it isn't in Northwestern. I was gonna say they do have the taller grass, but it's in Purdue.
It's in Purdue, yeah. I don't like 2 seems like I think this game is gonna be close.
Yeah. I feel like it should for these two teams, but I know nothing. In college, is just the cultures. You change the faces, the cultures stay the same. I mean, look at Georgia. They flip from Mark Rich and they go to Kirby Smart. The exact same
exact person.
Yeah, and like you said, Purdue.
This is how all programs work for the most part.
Purdue is all about how many explosive plays can I get off in one game, and that might not be great against a Northwestern team that just isn't going to change its scheme all game.
It's just consistently decent. That's all they do. Just fundamentally decent football, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
And
this line flipped from Purdue when it first opened.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yes.
That's all I really have to say about that. I can't digest
call
that.
these 2 games. We gotta ban these.
I guess the game of the week. This line feels weird to me. Wisconsin at Michigan. The line's at 4. Wisconsin's favored 4.5. Over-unders at 54. Mertz is supposed to play. From what I've heard, Wisconsin. I don't understand this line because for me, I guess you're just the reason it's so low is the fact that Wisconsin, this is their first full week of practice, and I guess you think maybe they'll be sluggish from 15 players having COVID and being off so long. But like, in what world do we think Michigan stays within 4?
The same world that Iowa doesn't lose 3 games. I mean, Michigan can't lose 3 straight. It's not like the NFL where you take a year off and tear it all down and rebuild. Like, these are your players.
It's a must-win game for Michigan.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because it's also college football where they haven't really practiced, but they're also kids, so it's not like they're going to be losing their wind as much or anything like that. I don't know what to do with this game, Nate.
Here's one where I think that Michigan is actually going to benefit from fans not being in the stand, because if fans were in the stand and Wisconsin was able to go there and steal a win and make them lose 3 games in a row, I think Wisconsin would take that opportunity.
I think if fans were in the stands this year, Jim Harbaugh would actually be fired because you'd actually see a lot of people there.
Very good. Jim Harbaugh would already be out there. Yeah. Good point. I don't know. Like, part of me is just thinking, like, I think I'm probably going to stay away from it. It's at 7:30, so who knows? My mind could probably change game day. It's not on my card. But to me, like, the only reason I wouldn't take Wisconsin is if I'm betting on the fact that this is the first week they've had full practice in 21 days, or 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. And they had 15 players that had it. The quarterback had it, but I didn't see anything like with Trevor Lawrence where he was having a ton of bad symptoms. And maybe you think they're going to be sluggish or like not very good, but I mean, they looked really good in their first game. In Michigan, I get there's that factor of like, we got to play for Jim Harbaugh, if that's even a thing, but really we just got to play not to be a super embarrassed on the national stage because it's only a real like big game. I just don't, I don't know. Like, I don't see it. Like if Wisconsin hadn't had COVID, you think they're going to be a 4-point or a 4-point favorite?
No, I think if Wisconsin played, this would be like a 14-point, 13-point. Yeah.
Yes. And I just talked myself into it. Wisconsin, I think, is going to blow Michigan out
because
their quarterbacks are so bad. They leave them on an island every time. They're not like terrible, but they're left out on an island for no reason. And Graham Mertz is just going to pick these boys apart.
Yeah, those handsy corners. I don't know if they're going to be able to handle Wisconsin's wideouts.
No, and the only thing I keep thinking in my head that's holding me back is like, one, either the first week had to be a complete fluke. And 2, COVID had a real physical impact and mental impact to where they're just not like they weren't doing film study on their own and things like that, and they're just going to be very sluggish. But that doesn't feel like Wisconsin. Like, Wisconsin doesn't feel like a team that's going to come out and make a bunch of mental lapses and be sluggish. I mean, maybe they are, but I can't see it.
Even if they do, they'll just go to the run. They'll just go to the ground. Yeah.
They're much more physical at the point of contact. Much more physical.
So,
yep.
So
they don't really have the typical Wisconsin running back, though, this
but
year.
they still got the typical Wisconsin O-line.
They sure do. Sure do.
It's that very typical Michigan defensive line. So
also true.
I like my odds there. All right. Let's go through our cards, see if we pick up any other games here. I can go
Wait, are Michigan State and Illinois the only teams in the Big Ten with a 7? Everyone else is a 2 or a 3 for the lines?
I believe
Minnesota, so. Iowa's 3. It's moved to 3.5. It was at 2.5.
Oh, it was at 2.5. Those are just weird lines all across.
Penn State, Nebraska's at 3. Which that game, I mean,
that is dumpster
fire.
I can't
imagine Nebraska or Penn State's going to keep sliding, but at the same point, I have no reason that they have a backstop.
So the only reason I'm going to say that Penn State will probably continue to slide is because I witnessed the 3-9 season where we showed up every Saturday and kept saying there's no way Michigan State could get worse, and they got worse.
And they did.
So
that team I'm nervous about with Penn State because there's nothing that's made me feel good about that team.
No,
nothing. I felt good about them early in the season, like right before Ohio State. I went in there going, all right, maybe the first week was just a fluke. You know, they got spooked a little.
Yeah, look at LSU.
But
in a similar position, except Penn State didn't win a national championship.
Very true. And have the type of recruiting classes that LSU has had. All right. I'll start with my card. I got Arkansas plus 17.5 against Florida. Dan Mullins. Hey, I didn't think he had the stones to win a big game. He won a big game against Georgia, but Georgia has no offense. That defense, I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in it. That was a huge emotional swing for them. Arkansas, they are about that fight. They are ready to brawl. They are a scrappy, feisty team. Like I said last week, they are the definition of it's not how big not the size of the dog, but the size of the fight in the dog. I like them. They're a covering machine too. They're 10-0 against the spread, I think, in their last 10 games.
Holy cow.
Plus 17.
Sam Pittman is out for that game, Nate.
Is he?
Yes. Sam Pittman has COVID. Their head coach.
Dante's peacing out, but we will see you next week, sir. Just giving our viewers a little why you won't be heard for the little bit at the end.
Yeah.
I did not know that, but I'm still going to take them.
I don't know that changes much because their offensive and defensive coordinator are kind of the guys that feel to me like they're really running that, and Sam Pittman's kind of the motivator there.
Hell, it might even motivate the players to go win one for the Gipper type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to win the game. I think Florida is so good offensively, but 17.5, I like that. BC plus 13.5, I like. I think I'm also probably going to take the over. I'm not sold yet on that. That might be a game time decision. You'll have to see what I tweet out for my final card. IU, Indiana, I got -7. Oregon, 10.5. I think I rewatched that Oregon game. I'm not saying it was flawless. They're playing Washington State. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about Oregon is that they don't play defense. That defense is good. Like, it was the first game. I think they're going to settle in a little bit better this week. But the corners, I thought, had really good position on wide receiver most of the time. The defensive line looked like it was starting to get going. Like, I like Oregon. I think they're going to be good. Army +4 against Tulane. They're coming back. That run offense is just a nightmare to deal with. And then I've got West Virginia -3. They're just the superior team this week. TCU is a disaster. An absolute disaster. Like I've watched 2 TCU games and I've turned them off halfway through because of how bad they are. Like I just think of that Texas game. And like I'm not saying West Virginia is super good, but they're just the better team this week. I've watched them both play and I don't think it's really that close. I don't think 3 is that close. If it was maybe at a touchdown, I'd maybe be reconsidering it, but at 3, they're better than TCU by a field goal. Yeah, 100%.
Fair enough. Yeah, you've talked me into watching that Oregon game. I really need to watch Oregon this week because last year even they weren't they weren't the same Oregon team that you remember, like the same Oregon team that's flashy and able to run all the way around you, and that they just get out muscled once they play against Stanford. They're the opposite now. They're the ones that are doing the out muscling.
Yeah, like 100%. And the thing with Oregon, I was surprised. Like, and I think I might have just given the opinion that they played bad against Stanford. They didn't play bad. I mean, they only let up 14 points. But you did see them take a little bit to really get into it. But they are a much more physical team than what you're used to in Oregon. They still have the flashiness, but they are much more physical on defense, much more physical on the offensive line. Like it's a little bit of a different team, which is very impressive to watch. But yeah, the defense is good. Like it's good. I think it's gonna be very good this year. I was very impressed with the secondary and the defensive line.
Fair enough. I think for my first pick for this week is another game that I turn off all the time. It seems like it's UC. They just blow teams out and they get boring. And so to me, it doesn't really matter what the spread is. It's 27.5, but they've been playing so well this year that it doesn't really matter what the spread is to me. Whatever it is, I'm going to take it.
I bet
so I'm taking UC minus 27.5 right there. The other game that I just started debating in my head because I was like, oh, Minnesota, they blew up. They beat up pretty good on Illinois last week. But so did Iowa. I wasn't sure if Minnesota's back or not, like actually kicking things back into the gear. So I might actually stay away from that game. I was I kind of like Minnesota, but I don't really love Minnesota. And I don't think Iowa's as good as they show against Michigan State last week. This week, I actually will bet on my Spartans just because.
Going head here. We're going head to head.
Yep, we're doing a big old reputation game. My reputation's
Get
on the line here because this line smells. No other reason than this line smells. Am I going to take Michigan State here? The other one, definitely Wisconsin. Definitely taking laying the 4.5 with Wisconsin against Michigan. I don't think Michigan's any good. I do think Wisconsin is pissed off too that they haven't been able to play the last 2 weeks, and so they're going to come out and Graham Mertz is just going to be given the green light, and they are just going to turn this one into a track meet real quick. I said it earlier, Virginia Tech. I have to take that one. It's a bear trap game. There's no rhyme or reason to this line, so I have to take Virginia Tech in this one. Let's see, what else do I got here? What else do I got? Anything? I like the BC game with you, Nate. I'm on BC. I was going to say under 49.5 points is kind of where I see the game going. I wanted to say an under just because I feel like Notre Dame's not going to put up very many points after they had that huge game against Clemson. And their offense seems to kind of go in spurts this year, but 49.5 kind of seems right around the line that I don't like taking an under on.
Yeah. It feels very well spotted. I'll say that. Like
yes.
I could easily make the case for either one of the two over under. I think I lean more over because I hate taking an under and being wrong, but I'm with you. It's that smells. It seems like Vegas computers teed that up almost perfectly.
I guess they kind of did and they kind of didn't, because I see that game being like a 7-13 game or a 60-point game.
True.
So
That's a good,
I don't really know. It's either definitely going to hit the under or definitely going to hit the over.
Well, I think it'll either be really close. See, my argument would be it's either going to be really close, which gets you to that over under at 49, or one team's just going to blow, like Notre Dame's just going to blow the water out of. I didn't have a good phrase there. That's a terrible phrase, but just absolutely destroy them. Just blow the water right out of them. They're going to be super dehydrated come the end of that game, guys. Like, what was that? Just blow the water right out of them. Holy smoke. Yeah, either I think it's going to be really close and sort of low scoring that gets you right by that, or Notre Dame's just going to absolutely smoke them here. One of the two. But if they absolutely smoke them, then that over-under is like going to be really close, I think.
Right, yeah. If they absolutely smoke them, I mean, that over's in play just by Notre Dame alone. Yeah. The other game I do kind of like, I've grown to like Ole Miss. I think they're going to put up some points still in this South Carolina game.
I forgot about that.
I think I'm taking Ole Miss minus 11, even though they're 2-4, which their record surprised me because they must just cover and put up a ton of points in every game they played, and I'm just misremembering some of the games. But well, yeah. So they lost to Auburn, who's not good, but Arkansas, who is good, and then they put up a fight against Bama and they beat Kentucky. And they dropped 35 points on Florida. So they can put up points. They just can't stop anybody, which we already knew that. That's Lane Kiffin. So I do like this game. I do like Ole Miss in this game just because of that, because I don't have faith in South Carolina to put up any points. So I don't like the over of 78.5 here.
That's going to be, I agree. It was on my radar. I kind of forgot about it. That is going to be a watch it game because, like, Will Muschamp might be out if he loses here because this team is dying quick. I think he's already probably out, but I think he's definitely out if he loses to Ole Miss here. And Lane Kiffin, I mean, he's got them going. I'm going to be super interested to see what he does down at Ole Miss with some resources because he'll have a couple bagmen around.
Oh, he has some resources.
But yeah, I mean, the offense is they're put up points. Be nice to see if he can get a defense, but they're putting up points.
The bags only got dropped on offense this last year, Nate. They haven't got around to defense. They need to drum up a few more boosters.
Fair enough. I think that's all for my card. I don't know if you have anything else, but I think I'm adding Wisconsin. I'll probably add a little on Saturday, so watch out for the card to be tweeted out at TriviaKidsPod on Instagram and Twitter. Let's wrap it up with our top 10s because.
Oh, I forgot about those.
Well, I'll give you my top
one real quick news is that
Yeah.
Sports betting might become legal in Michigan here very, very soon,
Yes.
and we are very, very excited for that.
Dude, it makes me so angry as I see these states around me because I'm in Ohio just start legalizing. It's like, God damn it. Like, I got West Virginia, I got Indiana, both have it legal. I got Michigan about to have it legal. Kentucky's not going anywhere with it, which is actually kind of hilarious because they totally could use it as a state. And yeah, I think I saw in Ohio there is a bill and DeWine is in support of it, but it hasn't gone anywhere. Like it's just sitting on somebody's desk essentially. Not to get like political.
Sounds like a lot of things these days, right?
Yeah, like I think because Corona hit, I think it was gonna. From my understanding, it was gonna be processed. There's a bill. Damn it, Titans just scored. Well, that's actually good for my over. Yeah, DeWine, I think supports it, in the state legislature supports it, but it's just like Corona hit and a bunch of other things hit, and they just haven't. It's just sitting on a desk somewhere now. But hopefully someday we'll see.
Yeah, Michigan was expecting a lot more money from legalizing sports gambling when they did back before March Madness, and I was all pumped to be able to go down there. So I think they're just speeding up the online availability.
You have to have it.
So
yeah, you have to have
they're on the front doorstep. They're on that 10-yard line, just about to cross the goal line. They're starting to advertise it here, so it's gonna be fun.
Nice. All right. Top 10. I'll give mine since you do not have one. You can criticize mine if you like.
I have one.
All right. Well, I'm going to start at number
just
1
forgot.
and work my way down. Go in reverse.
Start with number 1.
Number 1, my top dog, my top chief. I got Alabama, top of the line right now. I don't love it, but I love it as I don't really love any team right now as much as I was beforehand, but I think they're the best team as of right now, and they are the clear-cut number 1 product out there, we'll say.
Okay.
That's what I got. Number 1.
Are we doing this alternating, or are we going to give all yours?
Yeah, I'll just go through. Number 2, Notre Dame. Notre Dame proved last week that they're for real. I think you have to put respect on that name. That is a capital N, capital D, now an ND. They're in the big boys club. For a while, it was, they're over super rated. They've got all this talent but never do anything. They show they can win big games. They show that they can handle big moments. That's good. I like them defensively and offensively right now. Ohio State, number 3, clear cut. I want to see a little bit more out of them before I put them number 2, but I think they'll probably replace my Notre Dame at number 2 here, but I want to see a little bit more out of that defense. The offense looks phenomenal, though. Number 4, Clemson. I mean, you bring Trevor Lawrence back, that's a different team, but they do stumble like every Clemson team does, but I fully expect them by the end of the year to just be a juggernaut, as they always are. They're a little banged up right now, so we'll see. Number 5, UC Bearcats. Number 5, UC Bearcats. This is a good football team. The reason they are number 5 and not number 6, and my number 6 is not number 5, just comes down to coaching. I think Luke Fickell is a little bit better of a coach right now, but my number 5 and my number 6, you could flip them any direction you want, and I would give it to you every day and twice on Saturday. BYU, my number 6 team. I've said this. I was on the BYU wagon real early in the season. I'm talking week 1. I was saying Zach Wilson should be the Heisman candidate. I see everybody getting on BYU now. Everybody getting on them as a betting wagon. This team, I know Boise State was down their 2 quarterbacks, but there's no part of that game where you watch and you weren't impressed with the offense, with the defense, with the way they play football. They are a very good football team. Number 7, Florida. Great football team. Great offensive football team. The defense, though, I still have a lot of questions and concerns there. I don't know if they can really. I know they beat Georgia, and Georgia is a big boy program, but Georgia has no offense, so I'm very nervous there. Texas A&M, I think they're a little bit of a fraud at my number 8 spot. I put them at 8 because I just can't put them ahead of any of the other teams I think of.
They did beat Florida.
I know, but I think if you run that back, Florida beats them now. I think you could coin flip that game. If you want to, if you put them in, I'm not gonna have an argument if you put them 7 and if you put them 7 and I have them at 8 or whatever you want to do there. I don't have a huge problem with that, but I just think Florida. I think if you run that back, they are the better. I think they get them the second time around. I don't have a lot of faith in Texas A&M. Maybe that's just my brain not fully recognizing how good they are. But I just see Texas A&M just folding under the big lights again. Miami at 9. I don't love the 9 spot, but they're a good football team right now. We'll see. I don't have a lot of conviction at my 9 and 10. My 10 is Oregon only because I want to see that offense do a little bit more. Stanford, I had zero expectations defensively. I want to see if they're Oregon. I have as number 10 instead of number 9 because the other part is we all know the story of the Pac-12. They are the snake that eats themselves every year. I'd love to put Oregon higher, but until you can prove that you can get through a Pac-12 season without losing to like Kevin Sumlin down in Arizona, I'm not putting you higher at this point. But they are a good football team. They look like to be a very competitive football team this year.
Fair enough. My number 1, I'm going to go with Notre Dame here because they have won the biggest game of the year. That's simply it. Alabama hasn't really beaten anybody necessarily, but they do look really good. So I'm going to go Notre Dame 1, Alabama 2, for the fact that I stated they're Bama. I mean, it is what it is. And then number 3, I'm going to go with Clemson because they did look really good against Notre Dame, who is now the number 1 team in the country in my book.
Without their best player.
They're going down to number 3. They did
And
not have
best
Trevor Lawrence, and they were missing some key starters on defense.
Yep.
So that'll be a whole different game next time when they play each other in the ACC championship game. So I love to see that matchup. I can't wait. And then number 4, Ohio State. Ohio State's kind of weird. They look good, but they don't play anybody, and they haven't played anybody, at least not really on the schedule. And this week they're not going to get any better because their game got canceled.
Yeah, I was super looking forward to this game to see what not that I think Maryland would have even come close, but Maryland's playing good offense. I would have loved to see what that defense did against a team that plays offense like Maryland does and against a quarterback like Tua. That was my big, I can't wait because this will justify me putting them higher if this defense comes out and plays very good. So I'm bummed that game got canceled.
Right, and the craziest thing is that they do play Indiana, but outside of that, they don't play anybody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maryland might be the second best team that they play. That includes Penn State.
Yeah.
I mean, Penn State looks bad.
It's a cakewalk schedule right now.
So they literally play Maryland and then Indiana, who I think could lose to Michigan State simply because of the up-down theory.
Yeah,
and so Maryland could be one of the better teams that Ohio State plays this year, and that game got canceled. So where was I? I was at 4. So 5 and 6 are going to be just like yours. They're going to be a coin flip. I'm going UC first as well, just because it's Luke Fickell. And then BYU is number 6. The 2 undefeated non-Power 5 teams that I hope have a chance to make it into the college football playoff, but I really don't think they're going to end up having a chance.
Did you hear? It's too bad they didn't cancel this Ohio State game. I mean, they would never do it. But did you hear the BYU coach, because their schedule is going to get called short here? They only have 2 games left. Where he's like, "We'll get on a plane and play anybody. Like we're trying to add games right now." He's like,
"That's what I wanted to see. I want to see UC and BYU play each other."
Yeah,
they ended up slow or with an extra week. That's what I would love to see. Yeah, somebody ends up with
an extra week. It's possible because he's down for it. He's calling every conference. Him and the AD are calling every conference. Hey, if you have an extra spot, we'll fly and play you.
And if I was UC, I'd be picking up the phone and playing that game because that's really the only way either of these 2 teams make it into the college football playoffs is if they play each other to make it into the college football playoff.
That be awesome?
That would be so... you just made my night, Nate. I didn't know that was going on at BYU. So if they end up working that out with UC,
they haven't worked it with a specific team yet, but they're just calling conferences and teams.
Yeah, I'm specifically saying that they have to make it out. They have to make this work with UC. If I was UC, I'd be canceling any games on my schedule to make that work. Whichever one needs to be canceled would be canceled immediately. So anyways, that's my 5 and 6. 7 is going to be A&M simply because they beat Florida. I'm with you though too. I'm not sure they're really better than Florida. 8's going to be Florida.
A lot 9, of coin flips here. You could
I was gonna just keep on going with Miami, but I don't like Miami that much. So I'll do something a little bit more off the wall. I'm gonna put Wisconsin at 9. because we don't know how
That's
they
a good
look. I
number.
mean, they looked amazing in that first game. They've only played one game. But so has my number 10 team, because my number 10 team is Oregon. So both the two teams in 9 and 10 have only played one game. So we'll see how they go. I did have Coastal Carolina and Marshall. I figured the gig is up now that there's more teams actually in this
Yeah.
now. So I figured no more of those two.
100% the gig
So
is up.
the gig is up there. So I'm going to put some
It was
a little bit
ride.
more fun teams, and we're going to go Wisconsin at 9 and Oregon at 10.
I don't hate it. We'll see how it plays this week. Should be interesting. I'm going to soak it all up because I don't know how much more of this football we're going to get. I hope we get a full season, but I'm going to soak it all in while we can. And we'll see. I've been thinking about starting a series of like what foods to make so you can just watch football, but this weekend you can do whatever you want. But I'm thinking little beef stew, maybe some egg noodles.
Egg noodles.
Beef stew, egg noodles.
Beef stew and egg noodles, Nate's favorite meal.
All right, that'll do it for us. As always, peace.
Peace.